Hello everyone, this is Dr. Vignesh Ramamoorthy, Assistant Professor, Department of ICT and Cognitive Systems, Sri Krishna Arts and Science College, Coimbatore. Today, in the course Relational Database Management System, we are going to discuss on the following topics. This is Unit 1, Lecture number 7. We're going to talk about how we can categorize the main database objects, and we'll review the table structure, list the data types that are available for columns. We can see how to create a simple table and what are the constraints, how these constraints can help in the time of table creation. And at the end, we'll see how the schema object works. So these are the topics we're going to discuss today. Let's get into the presentation now. So this is the YouTube link you can refer. Let's start with what is called as database objects. We have listed the different objects in database. The first one is going to be table. Table is the basic unit of storage where it has rows and columns. You can have the column names as field name or an attribute, and rows will have the records which are called as tuples. And view is a table can be represented in different forms of views logically. So you can divide a table into small tables also using the views concept. And generating numeric values is called a sequence. And to improve the performance of some queries, we have the object called as index. And you can provide different names, alternative names to the objects, which are called as synonyms. Next, we'll talk about naming rules. So for every variable, we have some rules to follow. Similarly, when you're using a column name or a table name in the relational database management system, we have some rules to follow. So table names and column names should begin with a letter, and the size should be 1 to 30 characters long. You can have the mixture of uppercase alphabets or lowercase alphabets, A to Z, numbers 0 to 9, and you can use the special symbols like dollar, underscore, and hash. So these are the only special characters allowed to create a variable. So you cannot have duplicate names. Say for example, you would have used a column name in table 1. The same column name, you cannot use it again in the column 1, in the table 1. So no duplicates of names, no repetitions. This is not allowed, and you're not supposed to use a reserved word. Say for example, if you want to create a table with a keyword called as DESC. DESC is described. So you cannot do that because that's a reserved word of Oracle. Now we'll see how you can create a table. So these are the steps that you have to follow for creating a table. The syntax is given here. Create table. Create is again a keyword. Table is also again a keyword. And the schema is the table structure which contains the number of columns. So you can give all the column names with the data type and size. So you have to mention the column name, the data type of the column, and column size. These three things are very important. You have to give that here. So once you do that, a storage area is created for a table. So this is how you will be creating a table. And remember, you have to give a meaningful table name. So one table can be used to have a reference with another table. This can be done using the foreign key. So referencing another's user table can be done. We'll see how you can use the foreign key in the constraints. So creating table, we just came across the syntax. Now we'll see a small example. Create is a keyword, table is a keyword. Department is name of the table. So department is a meaningful name. We have followed the rules for naming conventions, naming the column name and naming the table name. And we'll see what are the columns or fields of this table called as department. So the first column is department number, the data type is number, and the size is 2. So when you're defining a table, you have to give the name of the column, data type, and size. So we have the other column names as well. So department name, that is varchar 2 of 14, size is 14, data type is varchar 2, and location again varchar 2 of 13. So So this is how you can create a table. And also you can have the date data type. For the date data type, you can use the default system date, which means the system date will be stored here. So this is how you will be creating a table. After creating a table, you wanted to check whether the table is created correctly. So this is the command to check it. So describe department, describe table name. Describe is the keyword to check the schema, whether the schema is created. Schema is nothing but the table. Department is name of the table. Now you can see the output here. Whatever the values you have used, the column names you have used, that is incorporated here, and a table is created. So this is how you can create a table. The other data types are listed here, like varchar2, char, number. Number can be used here, precision and scale. P stands for precision, S stands for scale. When you're using numerical values or some real numbers like 4.5 and generally simple numbers, you can use that. And date is another data type. And apart from that, we have long, clob, raw and long raw, blob, b file, row id. So there are many data types that can be used when you're creating a table. Most commonly, we would use varchar2 and number and integer. So these are some of the common things which you're using. Now we'll talk about the constraints. Constraints are nothing but conditions. So when you are creating a table, after that you're going to insert values. While you're inserting values, you can set some conditions in the relational database management system. So we'll see what are the conditions here one by one. So these constraints will prevent the deletion of a table values. You cannot quickly delete the values since it follows some constraints. These are nothing but rules at the table level. The first one is not null, which will not allow the null values. And the second one is unique. Unique will not give duplicate values. And the third one is primary key. Primary key is going to give uniqueness. That is actually primary key is equal to not null plus unique. Will not accept both the null value and duplicate values. Foreign key is called as referential key, which can make references with the other table. When you're involving a lot of tables, you can use foreign key. And check is just going to check the condition. So we'll see one by one with an example. So this is how we will be defining the constraints. This syntax given here. You can do that along with the create table statement. So create table schema is given there. We already came across all those things. So the constraints can be given here. Column constraint or table constraint you can mention here. So column level constraint is along with the column name you can give the constraint. So that is called as column level constraint. And a table constraint is given at the end of the table. Okay. So we'll see an example. So create a table. Table employee is name of the table. The first column name is employee ID. Data type is number and the size is 6. Along with that we are going to give the constraint. So constraint emp id pk primary key. So this is a user defined name. You can give any name. So we are going to set primary key here. So the first constraint set is primary key. So primary key is set for the employer id. So this is the first constraint. This is one method which we were talking about, which is called as column level constraint. Now we will see an example for table level constraint. So table level constraint is given at the end. Okay, so here you can see the constraint is given in the same table. Will be giving at the end, where you have to mention the column name. So employee ID you have mentioned here. So primary key is given for the employee ID. Apart from this, we have one more constraint given here, that is not null, which I just change the color. So not null is given along with the job ID. So job ID varchar2 of 10, that is the data type and size. So the constraint set here is not null. So this is another constraint given here. So in this table we have two constraints. One is the primary key, which is highlighted yellow. Okay. And the second one is not null. Not null is highlighted in red. So these are the two constraints which are used in this table. Now we'll go for not null. Not null will not accept null values. So normally in any table you can have null values, but there are certain conditions, certain places where you don't want to have null values. See, for example, if you want to store the records of contact numbers, there must be at least one contact number. So null value should not be there. So you can give not null constraint there. So that will not accept null value. Next comes unique constraint. Unique will not accept duplicates. See, for example, roll number. Roll number in a class, there should not be two students with same roll number. There can be two students with same name but not with same roll number. And email ID also should be very unique. In these cases, you can use the unique constraint. Unique constraint will not accept the duplicate values. This will help you to reduce the redundant values. Next comes primary key. So we already came across not null and unique. The job of primary key is equal to primary key is equal to not null plus unique. Primary key will not accept null values. Primary key will not accept duplicates. So it does the job of both not null constraint and primary and unique constraint. So here in this table we have department ID. The department ID is set as primary key, where you cannot give any duplicate values, you cannot give any null values. So this is going to be very super unique. Primary key is actually super unique, right? So next comes the foreign key constraint. Foreign key is actually called as referential key, which can help you to refer another table. So if there are two tables, one table can refer another table. That's why it's called as referential key. So here in this example, we have two tables. The first table is departments and the second table is employee. The department ID is there in both the tables. So what you do is in the first table, which is called as departments, the department ID is set as primary key, and the second table, the department ID under the table name employees, we set that as foreign key, which is going to refer. So department ID of employees, department ID of employees is going to refer the department ID of departments. So every time when you enter a value, that makes a reference, hence it is called as foreign key. So this is how you can set the constraint. So it's marked here. So constraint employee department FK is foreign key of department ID. So you can set the column name here. So department ID is a column name which is going to refer departments of department ID. Here, this departments is a table name, and department ID is column name. Department ID of employees, and employees is table name, which is going to refer the department ID of departments. So this is reference. It's an example for foreign key. Now we'll talk about check constraint. Check is just going to check the condition. It will set some conditions and check whether it is satisfied. Say for example, the pass mark is 40. So you won't have to set the values as greater than 40. If the value is less than 40, it should not accept. And you can have some values for salary also. So you can set some values and check whether it is satisfied. This is called as check constraint. Next comes dropping table. So drop table name, that's the syntax. Drop table department ID. Department ID is name of the table. What you do is here, once you use the drop table name, it's going to delete the entire table. That can be data, structure, schema, whatever. It's going to delete everything, all the index, constraints, and pending transactions. Everything will be deleted. So you cannot roll back the drop statement. You cannot roll back all the DDL commands. So data definition language commands you cannot roll back. Maybe if it is DML, data manipulation language, you can roll back. The other things you cannot roll back. So this is the use of drop table. So now in this lecture, we have discussed about the create table, how you can include the constraints in the table. We came across many constraints like primary key, foreign key, check, null, not null, and the unique constraint. And we also discussed about the database, main database objects, and we saw how you can manipulate and handle the table structure and what are the data types. And we saw some examples of creating a simple table and how these constraints reacts for the table. And at the end, we saw how the schema objects works. So these are the topics we have covered today in today's lecture. And there's a small MCQ, online MCQ. You can visit this link and do this quiz. So this will give you a better understanding. So the next topic is going to be data retrieval using the SQL select statements. We'll discuss on different select statements. Thank you.